Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Hydra, and this is Rust Console Edition. Are you ready for what I have in store for you today? Well, if so, then like, subscribe, and follow me. Alright, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, we're going to start off with something a little bit simpler here at the beginning, but it is going to be a little trick for you guys that I haven't shown in any of my other videos yet, and that's to replace your switches with electrical branches. If you have a little bit of leftover power that you're not using, these are really good to use in replace of switches, because that way you don't have to worry about unauthorized people being able to use them or access them. So it's really good for the door system here. And what you just saw me do is I unlocked the door, I made sure the door was closed, and then I could pair the door controller to the door. So for the system, really all you need is an electrical branch connected to your main power source, which is typically your battery, or you should have an infinite power system at this point. And then we're going to go into door controller from the right side of the electrical branch. Now, as soon as the door controller receives power, it's going to open the doors, and as soon as the door controller loses power, it's going to close the doors. So if we configure the left side of the branch to take all of the power, it's going to close the doors. And then you can daisy chain and string other doors onto that as well. Just make sure that when you reset the values that you have enough power going out the right side to power all of your doors. So that's one simple way of doing it. So you log in the morning and you set your power to default 2, and then when you're logging out you set your power to say 200, and it stops sending power to your doors. So that's just a simple and easy way of doing a door system. Now, one other thing you can do is you can attach a timer to it. Oh, 0 also works, by the way. If you set it to 0, it's just going to set it back to the default 2 anyway, but 0 does work, so you don't actually have to move any of the buttons. But what you can do is you can set up a timer, and then from the timer into your door controller. And now what this will do is it'll allow you to set a specific time that the doors will be open for, and then they'll close automatically behind you. So setting it to 3600 here, that'll give you an hour. So as soon as you hit this switch, your doors will stay open for an hour, and then after an hour, all of your doors are going to close. I like to have mine be off times rather than just an hour, because I don't want anybody to be able to sit outside and know exactly when my doors are going to open and close. So I find having odd numbers is better, so something like 57 minutes. But if you're constantly in and out of your base a lot, then you can set it to a lower time, something like 37 minutes or even 27 minutes. And then that way they're always going to close behind you while you're out on doing whatever monuments you're doing, and then you don't have to worry so much about having your doors open while you're gone. And also, again, because we're using this electrical branch here instead of a switch, we can also turn off the system if we want. So let's just say it's in the middle of the timer while it's going on. We can simply reconfigure this branch so then that way it doesn't have enough power, and it'll turn off the timer, which will close all of the doors. So that way you don't have to worry about people breaking in and then using it while you're not on. Electrical branches instead of switches are way better. So now we're going to get into something a little bit more complicated. This is the lockdown system. I have already got a couple videos on this, so I will explain it, but I'm not going to go too in depth on this. Yeah, so we're going to get this set up here on the wall. We're going to start with 2 electrical branches and a blocker. And then we're going to do underneath an electrical branch, a memory cell, and then another electrical branch. So these are the main components. We're also going to need a timer. This timer is going to be set somewhere deep inside your base. And we also need a laser, and that's going to be put into a very high traffic area of your base, but far away from the timer, because they both are required in order for them to work. We also need an AND switch. And I always like to, because if I'm setting this up, it's going to be in a medium group base or a large group base, and there's going to be a lot of doors. So I usually like to have a large or a medium battery just set up at the very end of my system, because this battery won't be in use all of the time, or at least not all of the power will be. So it can sit there and trickle charge, and then when it's needed, you just it'll go off and you'll be good. So, but I always prefer a large battery, so we're going to pretend that the counter down there is coming from the large battery. So in order to wire this up, we're going to go into the first electrical branch here, and I'm going to use different colored wires so you can follow the routes on which the power travels, so you have an idea of what's powering what. And we're going to use this main line as red, so this is the lines that's going to power the doors. So from the right side of this upper branch, we're going to go down and we're going to go into the memory cell. Like that. And then from the inverted output, which is the left side of this memory cell, we're going to go into the electrical branch above. And then from the left side of that electrical branch, we're going to go into the input A. So that's going to power all of our doors. So it's coming from the battery, through the electrical branches, through the inverted, and then out to the doors. And then the one last power is going to be kicked out into the blocker to block the blocker. Because with this AND switch, both of the power modules have to be activated on the AND switch in order for any power to pass through. So we want to block one of the power lines so we don't have it continuously going through in order to prevent people from just being able to activate the trigger, and I'll show you why that matters here in a minute. So now it's going to be split off into another direction, and this one's going to go into our timer. And then it's going to come from the top of our timer. And this timer is basically acting like a switch, but it doesn't last for as long. Switches last for like 2 or 3 seconds, whereas this we can set to 1 second. And from this switch, it's going to go into this electrical branch. Now from here, our power is going to go into 2 different ways. First, it's going to go into the blue blocker, and then up into the B side of our AND switch. Now, as you can see, we have power running through the whole system, but the blocker is being blocked. So even if I was to pull the switch right now, no power would be able to pass through into the AND switch, so no power can pass through into the doors. So we're going to have to set up a way in order to trigger that. I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. So from the right side of this branch, we're going to go into the reset of the memory cell. If you want to know how this memory cell works, I do have a tutorial video on it. But basically it just switches power back and forth between one branch to the other. So So this is what you should have set up right now. And this is about 90%. Now we do need a way to make sure that people can't just sit here and spam it, because when you do activate the system, it will open your doors briefly and then reclose them. So we have to set that up. So we put that laser in a high traffic area. I like to put it somewhere near the front door or near TC, but again, it's going to be on the opposite side of the base as the timer there. Connected so the power out from the laser, and that's going to trigger the memory cell to send the power back and forth. But now we need a way to power all of that stuff, which is where that remaining empty slot in the first electrical branch comes in handy. Make the wires look neat for you guys. And there we go, there's the setup. So this is basically what I was showing you guys last time. A little bit more refined, so to speak. And then now we'll go over some of these values. So this one's going to be configured to 5. And the reason this is being configured to 5 is because this timer needs 1. This electrical branch also needs 1, so that's 2. And then we need 1 power to be sent into the memory cell, which is 3. And then 2 is going out here, so that's 4, 5. Which is the blocker and the AND switch. So that needs 5 power. Now this second electrical branch here, there's a really easy way to figure this one out. You're going to look at the power coming out from the blocker, and then you're going to add 1. So this one says 83. It's going to differ depending on whether you have it on a straight battery or whether you have it on coming off of your one of your other systems. In this case, I have 97 power that I get to play with. So of that 97 power, it's giving me 84 power to play with. So that says 83, so I'm going to add 1 to that. So we're going to put 84. And the reason you're adding 1 is because we already have 2 coming out the left side, so we only need to replace the 1 because we need 1 power coming out to block the blocker, and then the rest is able to go through. So with the 84 power going out there, and then 1 power going through the AND switch, we have the ability to run 83 different doors off of this system if we're using a large battery. And if we're using a medium battery, then I think it's 33 doors or something like that, 28, 33, somewhere in there. But yeah, so the bottom ones, these are just default 2. That's why this is the easiest system. Now, as you can see, one light is green over there on the AND switch, and the other ones are red. So we do need to activate them. So now we have all red lights. That means that the system is activated because we hit that laser. So there you go. You saw them all flash green for a second. Well, that's enough to have all of the doors open or all of the doors closed. So you will have to go through your base and open your doors, but then if you go to log out or if you are being raided, then you just hit that switch and every single door closes. So all of the lights are red, the system is activated. We're going to close the door. Now we're going to pretend that we're just hopping on, so we open the door. We're running around, we're going to go outside, we triggered the laser. You know, we don't have to worry about it because we're online, so, and we're not going far, so we can leave the doors open. And now it's like, okay, time to log off, or we're being raided, you just hit the switch and all of your doors will close. So it's super nice and simple. And again, having 80 doors close in 1 second is totally nice. I mean, super nice. And again, you can span that switch as much as you want, but unless you're hitting that laser on the other side of the base, it's not going to do anything for you. So, again, it's super important that you only have you do have at least one power going into that blocker. Otherwise, it's just going to allow the power to continuously flow through. So if you find that every time you hit the switch, the door is always open, even if you don't hit the laser, that's because you need at least one power going into the blocker, blocking that blocker to prevent enough power, or from power going through both. Yeah, I think I explained that right. So again, I do have a more in-depth guide on this lockdown system if you want to go and check that out. But now we're going to make this thing automatic. So, I've talked to a few people and they said that, oh, it's all well and good that this works, but I have a bunch of people that, in my group that'll constantly forget to pull the switch, and, so is there any way that you can make this so it automatically locks down every so often? And I said, absolutely. So in order to do that, we're going to add a few more things here. So we're going to add one electrical branch here. I like to do it under the memory cell if I can. And then we're going to add a blocker here on the end. And then we're going to add one more electrical branch above that. And then we're going to set another timer near our original timer. Just like so. Now we are going to have to do a little bit of reconfiguring for our wire here, or for our wire in. By the way, you can bring that radio wheel up by holding, I think it's L2 or L1. I have all my controls customized. But anyways, we're going to take that original red power line, and now instead of it going directly into our system over there, it's going to come from the right side of this branch, hooked back into the system. So again, we're just adding another electrical branch for the electrical branch from our other system, so we don't have to dismantle any part of our other system. So everything runs the exact same way there. So coming from this electrical branch, we're going to go into our next electrical branch, which is basically going to be running our timer system. And we're going to split the power out from here as well. So from the right side of this branch, we're going to go into the blue blocker, into the power input for our always on-off system. And then we're going to run power over to our timer. And again, this timer should be roughly near the other timer. And we're going to go from our branch out for this one. So hooking it up into the bottom of our timer. So this way, both of the parts of the system that we are running here all have power. Now, from the top of this timer, because this is what's going to be activating our automatic doors, we're going to run this to the timer on of our other timer, or the toggle on, I should say, for the other timer. So when we set a time on to this timer, every time that amount of time goes by, it's going to activate the other timer. But in order to do that, we need to create an infinite loop. So what's happening is the power is coming into this blue blocker right here, being passed through into the electrical branch, and then 2 power is being sent back into the blocker, blocking power. But because the power is being blocked, it can no longer send power to the electrical branch, so it can no longer block itself, so it unblocks itself. So then the power gets sent through into it, so it just becomes an infinite loop where it's constantly turning on and off again. And then we're going to turn that into our timer. So once the timer is activated, the timer stays on until the time has passed. In this case, I have 3180. That's just a random time that's just under an hour. I think it's about 47 minutes, somewhere in there. And the reason I do that is because I spend a little bit of time in my base, and then I go run around and I do a bunch of stuff. And I don't always want to leave my doors open, but if you're a very active clan, then you don't have to worry about that. This whole extra power system only requires 7 extra power, so you are sacrificing 7 doors from your system. But in all honesty, to have automatic doors that close all the time, as long as you're hitting that laser, then I would be happy with it. So I find that it works well. So you never have to worry about hitting the switch to close the doors. They'll automatically close as long as you're hitting that laser. And that's all you have to tell your team is just hit that laser and the door will constantly close for you. Yeah, so we'll get a peek of it here. So we'll turn that off. And we'll hook it back up into the system here. So again, you want the top timer to be set up for however long you want your doors to be open. Again, I recommend about 47, 53 minutes. But if you're in and out all the time, then I would set it to be something shorter, like 33 minutes or 37 minutes, something like that. And again, you're going to lose a little bit more power. So you will have to reconfigure this branch to make sure that you have 1 extra power. So in this case, because we need to remove power, we're going to remove power until power coming out of here. So in this case, 1 wasn't enough. I'm pretty sure we just added 3 power onto the system though. So if I drop this down to 75, we should have 1 remaining power coming out for the blocker, blocking the system, closing all of the doors, and rendering this useless until activated. And again, it's super important that you have it set up that way. So picture this, you know, you just spawned in and you're ready to go for the day, and you're the first one on in the base, right? So you just spawned in, you're the first one in, you go to open all the doors, you get yourself ready to go, you go out for a farm, boom, the base is activated, right? And then 47 minutes later, this timer is going to go off, closing the doors if you've been out there for a long time. Or, you know what, you're only on 10 minutes per farm, so you just hit the switch and then all of the doors close behind you, and you don't have to worry about it. And until somebody else hops on or the next guy hops on, none of the doors will cycle through. So it's a really awesome system. And again, the reason why that laser is important is because people can sit there and they can just keep hitting the switch, and if the door is closed, it will open the door real quick and then it will close the door behind it. So people can exploit that, which is why it's important to have everything split up on opposite sides of the base. Alright, now let's also say that you guys have a really big base and you want to be able to trigger this lockdown system from, say, up in a sniper tower or up on your shooting floor. Well, you can also do that too, which is just going to take a couple little extra pieces. So from the right hand side of another brand new branch, we're going to run our main power that we were running before back into our system. So again, we're just adding another electrical tree, or another electrical branch onto our electrical tree. And then we're kicking out off the left-hand side into our new tree, or new branch on our tree. And then we're going to configure this new branch, because we're having to run extra power out of it, to 11, because we're going to be running 3 extra power. Activated doors there for a quick second. And then we're also going to have to reconfigure that upper electrical branch here in just a second to make sure that we're still blocking the blocker. Right, so because we're, again, removing power off the system. So because we removed 3, we have to remove another 3 from here, bringing us down to 72, giving us 1 extra for our blocker. Now, coming out of the left side there, we're going to need to hook that to something, so that's going to go into our button here. Now, again, this button can be pretty much anywhere in the base, as long as it's far away from the laser. And I usually have this up on my shooting floor, so if somebody does break into the shooting floor, they do see that button, and for whatever reason, you know, the system is activated because you're not there, they can push the button and it will lock down the base for you, or you can push the button and lock down the base for you. And as long as nobody's online, well, it doesn't matter anyway. And then you're also going to need an OR switch, because now what we're going to do is we're going to be hooking up our power from the left hand side here into the OR switch, or into our into our button, and then from the button into the OR switch. Now, the button does send out 1 power itself, but we need to power something after this OR switch here, so we do need to run power into the button in order for that to work. And then we also want, we want the button and we want this timer to be able to activate the system. So we're going to connect the timer to the other side here. And now, because we just disconnected from the timer, we're going to need to connect our OR switch here into our other timer. So now both the timer and the button are able to power that switch, and we need to configure this to be 3. So we need 3 power, we need 1 power for the button, so we do need to add 1 more power onto our electrical branch there, bringing it up to 12. We also needed to add an extra power in there because we need to power 1 thing after our timer now. And again, we needed to make sure that we have 1 remaining power coming out of the blocker. That's the most important thing, is we got to be blocking that blocker. So now pulling this will activate it. When this timer goes off, that timer will activate it. Or if you push that button is going to activate it, but that's only going to happen and work as long as somebody has been logged in and hit the laser. So having it all spread out across all of your bases, it's going to be very difficult for people to, well, 1, know what the system is, and to be able to have it all accessible and functional all at the same time to make griefing even worth it. So, and by the time they've gone that far into your base, well, the base is gone. And one other tip, as I go through these last little bits of numbers here, making sure everything is set up right. One other tip is that you wire your door controllers backwards. So you pick the farthest door, the one that's most likely to get blown up. You configure that door first and then work your way back. So then that way, if they do blow up the first door, it's going to blow up door controller, which means none of the doors after that are going to work, so the whole system's pointless anyway. So you can also just put this system anywhere you want on any wall. It doesn't really matter. You kind of want them to blow this up, so you can put these in a particular place that you want. Also, another good easy way for you to see how much extra power that you have coming out, and to also know that your system is armed, rather than just looking at those red dots on everything, because that doesn't always tell you what's going on. Well, you can actually use one of these counters. So you put the counter in the switch, so that way you know it's activated, and also you have where this attachment is. This one's also going to go into our memory cell, but this one's going to go into the output of the memory cell, and then from the pass-through back into itself, and then we're going to hit triangle to show pass-through. So right now the system isn't activated, no power, and we can tell because no power is being sent into the display panel, but as soon as I hit that, it shows that we have 72 power. Now, because we have two things that are being powered after the memory cell, we technically only have 70 power left. So after all said and done, this system right here, it takes, what do we have? We have 97 power. So you have 70 doors that you can power if you wanted to off of this system. Off of a large battery with an infinite power system attached to it. So this is by far one of my favorite setups to do. It's one of the most complicated, but I honestly hate having to come in and out of my base all the time, opening, closing doors. I'll say it once, I'll say it a million times. And we'll pause here just so you can get a look at everything, and then we'll go over the values here one more time real quick. So we have a 5, we have 70, and we have 2. And then we have 2, 2, 3, 13, and 3. So as long as everything is configured to that, then you'll be good to go. You want this timer set to 1. This timer is set to seconds. Remember, so however many minutes you want, times it by 60. So if you want, 30 minutes, it's 30 times 60, and then you put that into your timer. And then again, you have your button. You can hide that behind a turret. That's what I like to do. Put it behind turret. Put it behind something that I know is going to get blown up. So then that way people can't spam it. And yeah, this is my favorite, most advanced lockdown system that I've got. And then there's one more special thing that I have to show you guys here real quick, that you can actually use instead of using that button. And it has to do with compound protection. So anybody who's actually stuck around here to the end of the video, you guys are going to get to see my new system that I've got. That's going to tell you, that's going to be able to either tell you when people are breaking into your compound, like if one of your compound walls goes down, it'll automatically trigger the lockdown system, locking all the doors for you. Or it will set off an alarm, or you can have it set to open doors for turrets. And yeah, so pause now if you guys want a really good detailed shot of this to take a picture of for later. And so yeah, so let's show you the outside system. So this right here, this is my compound system. So what happens here is if this compound wall gets destroyed, then this wall and this turret is going to turn on. So you can have these set up around your bases. So if somebody does break in, this stuff will automatically turn on and keep your base nice and safe. Here's a quick diagram of how it works. So coming from our battery here, we have an electrical branch. Now split from the right side of the electrical branch, we have that going out here to our light. Now this doesn't have to be a light, it can be a door controller, it can be anything else you want it to be, but it has to go onto your compound wall. And then from the compound wall into this XOR switch. This switch is not something that I've used before in any of my other tutorials, but this is it right here. And this means that if power is being supplied by both sources, that it won't allow power to pass through. Only one source will be on at a time. So from the XOR switch, it goes into this electrical branch, and then it gets split out two ways. The first is going to be into this door controller here to open this door, and then the second one is for the turret. So if as you can see from these two wires that are coming in here, so what happens is if that wall gets destroyed, hey buddy, if that wall gets destroyed, or that light gets destroyed, either or, which I'm going to disconnect now, your turret will turn on and your doors will open. So now you have a turret that sits there and protects your base, and it's nice and hidden and nice and safe. It only turns on when you need it. So this whole power system right here, it only needs 13 power being set out the left side of the branch, and then it's going to need 2 power being sent out the right side of the branch into this light. So as you can see, we got it all set back up now. So this only needs 2 being sent into the light, and then 1 more for the electrical branch. So this whole system here needs 16 power, plus 1 power for every light that you want to add on to the system. So if I'm going to add on another light here, let's say we have another wall actually. Let's grab another wall, and we'll put this here. Put another light on it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go from the pass-through into our other light here. And then from this light, we're going to go back into our XOR switch over here. So now we have our lights running, our doors closed, everything's good. And then if the wall gets blown up, like so, beep, 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 it automatically opens it up for you. And there's also other things you can do. So if you don't want it opening a door or anything like that, you can have it set up to an alarm system. But I mean, you're going to hear the explosives going off on the wall anyway, but you can set it up to an alarm system. You can set it up to be on my lockdown system. So instead of having a panic button, you attach this system onto it. And then so if any of your exterior walls get blown up, then your whole compound goes into lockdown for you, and you don't have to worry about it. So this is the compound defense system, and I hope this helps. Here's a quick diagram of where everything goes, just so you guys can see. And yeah. So I hope this video helped you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one.